We're here today with Dave Tucker, one of the 10 candidates running for the Vail Town Council election, which is going to be coming up shortly. So we're going to have a little conversation, get to know you a bit. And so to start that out, just briefly tell us about yourself.
I moved to Vail 10 years ago with a job at Pepe's playing music. I was hired out of New Jersey. Talent pool here, now that I know, wasn't as big as it might have or should have been or should be. We need more musicians. So I moved here with a job in housing and quickly learned about a ski town and ski culture and après ski and what a wonderful thing a mountain town is. I grew up in a big family. I have 5 sisters, 11 nieces and nephews, a grand nephew. Parents have been married for 57 years. So big family, know what it means to share. That's a good basis for me for helping other people do things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that background, what made you want to run for council?
I think that's a good background for this in that we're looking at Vail rapidly changing from a family-style resort into a town that's struggling against all the national pressures coming down on us economically, housing being the biggest, and getting involved really revolves around that. It's been a struggle for me to find housing, and I think of myself as a skilled and scrappy person, and I can only imagine what it's like to only have 1 or 2 skills that maybe aren't that lucrative and be struggling with looking at wanting to stay here and start a life here, but how to do that.
Yep. How much time per week have you budgeted for council work?
15 hours at least. I read a lot to begin with, and I'm interested in the finer points of things to make sure we're utilizing all our resources. And a lot of that comes out in finer detail. I know as a contractor, that's where, I mean, make or breaking a house remodel project is really in the finer details. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the obligations of showing up at City Hall, or, you know, the council chambers, and participating physically is one thing, but the flip side of that is really diving into the finer points of X, Y, and Z and whatever issue is hot that week.
How do you follow the current council meetings?
I read the agendas, and I don't have a lot of time because of working a lot to actually show up at council, and haven't really done that. But it's been great to be able to follow that through the internet. Yeah.
What are you, actually, give your quick elevator pitch on why they should vote for you.
I think residents of Vail, especially those that are working class, should vote for me because we all know how difficult it is to live and work here. We love this town, that's why we're here. And I think that in doing so, we all know that we live at the edge of this vast wilderness, which is incredible, and that our town is a little postage stamp in all of that. But we have an outsized role in our effects on that and within it. And I think we forget how much we impact that natural environment we're surrounded by, the national forests, and et cetera. And I think we need to really look at that. And so if you're a voter that's trying to figure out who to vote for, I want to help you figure out how to stay here, and that's cost of living, that's housing. And I also want us to decide how to deal with the natural resources we have, the biggest one being water. Moving forward over the next couple decades, that is going to become a bigger issue. And so yeah, if those things resonate, vote for me.
What are you doing to get your message out there?
I'm largely using Instagram. I think it's a great platform for visual, quick information. As a musician, I've, over the years, from guerrilla marketing on for 20 years of playing shows, learned how to create posters and graphic content, as well as having gone to art school and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a great way to visually get a message out with deeper links if people want to read further about any given subject.
Now, what is your Instagram? Give you a chance to plug it.
Tucker for Town. The number 4. Tucker, the number 4.
Perfect.
Town.
Have you been politically active either here in Vail or somewhere else before running for council this time?
I'm not in this level. I've always had a high respect for politics. My great-grandfather was a congressman out of Baltimore, helped overturn prohibition, so here's to great-grandfather. I grew up with a culture. My grandfather used to cut newspaper articles out for everyone in the family. My mother did that to me when I was in college. Everybody else would be getting cookies and I'd get newspaper clippings. So staying abreast of whatever the topics of the day were has always been very important to me. But actively participating as a political operative, I have not done.
Cool. So what is a Vail issue that gets your blood boiling? And what are you going to do about that? And what have you done about that?
I don't think there are enough places to live in Vail for the working class. The workforce, I don't know how we should describe that. I think we all know what we mean. Service industry workers have sort of a cap on how much money they can earn. And the rising costs of living in the Valley, and nationally, this is true of any renter, there aren't enough resources, and especially in Vail. And so that really does get my blood boiling, that there aren't enough locals that live here and work here and want to stay here to help foster and cultivate the broader culture that created Vail. I see us literally as sort of waning out. We're becoming, to borrow a term, becoming a bit of a cruise ship in the mountains, and I don't think we want to become copper. I think really getting another generation of people that love this place and want to stay here and build lives and families is very important.
Okay, so to flip it,
Yep.
because what do you do to keep your blood from boiling? What amenities, what things in Vail do you take advantage of? What do you do to have fun when you're not being a contractor, when you're not running for council or playing music for a living?
I read. I'm not a huge outdoorsman. I try to mountain bike as best I can. Every year I seem to get injured in some way that prevents me from actively doing that for more than a month. But really, I love information, and I'm huge on learning more.
What do you read?
A lot of fiction, and then a lot of policy and building, construction-related stuff. Right now I'm reading Edward Abbey, The Monkey Wrench Gang, which is, talking about tearing down dams, and don't do this, but yeah.
Okay. You told us what brought you to Vail. You came hired to be a musician at Pepe's, right?
Correct.
What year did you move here?
2013. It'll be 10 years November.
And what neighborhood did you live in when you first moved here?
I was given a studio apartment out on Bighorn Road. Pepe's,
So in East Vail.
Gastok Gramshammer, and the Sun and Alp jointly own a building.
And in 10 years, how many homes have you gone through?
7, 8.
Okay. And I'm guessing you don't own at this point.
I do not own.
So you're renting. What neighborhood do you live in now?
I currently live in Picken Creek, East Vail.
How long have you been there?
I've been there for 2.5 years.
Have you noticed, there's been, people have said things to me about a change in the demographics in town, specifically post-pandemic,
Sure.
but just direction that we're going. Have you noticed some differences in town?
Absolutely.
What are those? And describe a little bit.
I think we are pushing out the freaky people. There's, as all markets do, the cost of things are rising, and a certain set can afford to weather those increases. So I would say our demographics definitely, the more well-heeled remote worker set that can afford to have a house that sits empty and visit it a couple times a year, once a month, etc. But I do see that, especially out in Picken Creek, more of the units are empty all the time on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, so I can speak to that. I think whether it's the business district or Vail Resorts, there's a much more family-centric demographic coming in, sort of a la Beaver Creek, into Vail itself, and I've seen that over the last 10 years. Not as much partying, not as much late night activity, which is fine to a degree, but that also speaks to the loss of full-time locals participating in everyday life.
You mentioned that you said, generally speaking, in one of your other answers, you talked about there's a lot of things coming up where this is a consequential time. I don't remember the exact word that you gave. So we've talked about short-term rental. Mm-hmm. You've talked about housing.
Yes.
And the freaks being pushed out. I love that. I don't love that the freaks are being pushed out. I love the way you
turn of phrase
that.
I appreciate.
Yes.
Wait a second.
But so what's another issue that you see coming up that'll be in front of the council and that you feel strongly about and might want to do something about?
I think the easiest, well, not the easiest, one of the four of my mind is probably Dobson Arena. It's somewhat baffling / angering to see something get so far into planning that, and not include some things that I know everyone in the town and the younger demographic would like to see, like a rec center. How is it that we have a town our size that doesn't have access to a gym or a Y or something of that nature? We don't have that infrastructure in our town, and so everyone's left to purchase a monthly membership at a for-profit gym, which is fine. But I don't think there are actually that many full-time living hockey players in Vail that we're spending this amount of money on a project that benefits the region and the valley, but specifically Vail. I'd like to see better usage of funds to actually help the workforce and the full-time living locals.
Yep. So
living locals.
Yes. So you said you're using Instagram to get your message out.
Yes.
It is rare that we have the opportunity as candidates in town to address all the voters. This is one of those few opportunities that you have. So as we are coming to the end of the interview, go ahead and address the voters and explain who you are and why they should vote for you again.
I know there's a certain demographic in Vail that knows my name, knows who I am, thinks of me as a musician, the guy on stage that'll sing you a song. Some of those people even know that in the last 2 years I've started a construction company that's become pretty successful. I'm building something that I think is wonderful for myself. A lot of people out there don't know who I am. They might know my name, but they have no idea who I am and who I stand for. And to you, I would say, I'd love to hear your ideas. We're not going to agree on everything, but I would really love an active participation that at least has answers and questions and comments coming from all sides, even if we don't agree on them. Some of these issues I'm talking about will start fights, and that's okay, but don't make them emotional. Let's talk about them. We're never going to solve any of these issues if we fall into our emotional selves. We need higher thinking, and we need to come together as a community. Please vote for me.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for stepping up and throwing your name in the hat, and really appreciate it and look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.